what is the hardest part of your job then?
Balancing what we like as enthusiasts versus what will work and scale and make a profitable business. We had orders rolling in faster than we could make them, faster than we could fulfill them, and all the screws started falling out. It was like, oh, if these fall apart, like the business is done.
What product would you design with no restrictions, but like unlimited resources? We're talking with Daniel Kane. Daniel is the inventor of the original Ridgewallet and is now the Chief Product Officer at Ridge. And in case you've never seen a YouTube video or gotten an ad on social media, Ridge is aiming to redefine everyday carry from wallets to travel and everything in between. Today, we'll be picking Daniel's brain about his decade-long journey of starting Ridge in his garage to building the company it is today, his thoughts on product and design, how EDC has changed in the past 10 years since I started my website, and how we think the next 10 years of EDC will pan out. Quick disclaimer here, as of 2022, Ridge acquired everydaycarry.com, so I still run and operate Everyday Carry on my own, but now I can do it with Ridge's support to make more content for you guys. Anyway, we saw an amazing response from our audience when we bring guests on the show, and I love doing deep dives with makers and designers, so I really enjoyed today's discussion, and I hope you do too. So Daniel, thanks for joining Carry the Way.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm honored to be a guest and even more honored to be hanging out with Mikey in person for the first time.
So we're all here on a company retreat, and Mikey got flown in from the Philippines, and that got us kind of nostalgic about the good old EDC days when like we first met on the internet. And you know, that's in around the 2010s. It's before social media, online shopping isn't as big, before influencers, all of that. So how do you, Daniel, remember the landscape of like EDC products and how they were launched back then?
It's funny because back then EDC wasn't necessarily on my radar. I think I had seen it through like probably Reddit posts. That's probably the most familiar like way I found the site. I couldn't even definitively know if I was aware of everydaycarry.com. I do think I had like stumbled across it or seen it in some capacity. But I'm not sure if I'm reimagining that in my head.
No, I think that was a lot of people's experience. They're like, oh, that kind of looks familiar, but I don't know the term
I feel
for
like
it.
I've seen it.
Yeah, but I didn't know it's called that. That's what a lot of people would say. Like when I tell them like, oh yeah, I run Everyday Carry, they're like, and then they're like, what is that? And I show them, they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that somewhere.
And that's part of the reason of the early success of the site also, because people were, like back in the day, EDC was limited, very limited into those very enthusiast level forums, and that's the main reason you started your blog and eventually launching the big site, right?
Yeah.
Because you wanted to introduce people to this cool new hobby, cool new thing. And yeah, that was an interesting time for Kickstarter also as well. It was a lot of people of like, I couldn't find my perfect bag, so I made one myself. So we're gonna go on Kickstarter.
And on my blog like that, I would be looking on Kickstarter for these new products because there were like big companies making EDC gear that we know, like legacy brands like Leatherman and Spyderco and that kind of thing, and the product offering was very small. But Kickstarter is where all these new products could come to life. And for those of you watching who don't remember what Kickstarter is, it's kind of like an online platform to launch a new venture, and it's crowd-funded. So you had to get a bunch of people to sort of like trust in your project, give you money, and that'll be the resources to help you get that started. And that's what you did, right?
Yes, we launched a Kickstarter in 2013 for the wallet. I'd actually done a Kickstarter for sunglasses about 8 months prior. It was kind of where that was the first big break, where like the success of that was sort of like Kickstarter had their almost like their organic, authentic era back then, where it's probably not possible to do what I did back then now. A lot of people will like ask me for advice or like, what would you do differently now? And the landscape's so different, but back then Kickstarter would manually approve every project. So like you were almost guaranteed to be in a curated like offering of projects and be organically discovered. Now you got to do all the acquisition channels, and which I didn't know how to do when we first launched back then. So it's a very interesting era of Kickstarter.
So what were the early days like? We mentioned at the top of the show that you started out of your garage. So what was the initial idea? Like what got you started on creating that very first wallet?
The very first wallet, it's interesting because like I always tell people like I'm not necessarily like super passionate about wallets. That's like the thing I designed that like
that's me.
And like I do love minimalist wallets, and I was very into it, but it wasn't like necessarily a passion I had before I realized there was a market and a need for something. It was really after the sunglasses campaign, and it was when like cutting out the middleman, direct to consumer was like a lot more fresh than it is now.
Yeah.
It's kind of the earlier days of that, and that was kind of the message behind the sunglasses brand. And I've always been more interested in design and like functional design. That sunglasses didn't quite like fill that area for me. And I remember seeing a product. My dad had actually made fun of me because I stopped carrying a wallet around. I just had like a couple credit cards in my pocket, and I was a poor college student.
Yeah, what are you doing, bro?
one debit card, one credit, one ID. And my dad started making fun of me, and I actually went on to try to find a minimalist wallet and they were on the market. There was Human Wallet was around. There was various Kickstarter wallets that were essentially like elastic bands. And I poked around trying to get a wallet for my dad, and I saw something that essentially ended up being a key holder. So it was like a key organizer with a money clip on it.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, that should be a credit card holder with a money clip on
Makes
it.
sense.
And that was sort of like, then I set out to like make what I had envisioned in my head, or what product I was looking for. Because I couldn't quite find that fit. There were key holders, there were money clips, and there was nothing that I thought quite encapsulated like a full featured wallet. That's sort of what set me down the path of like figuring out that problem.
And if I'm not mistaken, that was what the original name was about, right?
Yeah, it was very much the relationship with me and my dad. I was in college, and it was very much like, I don't have time to do this. This idea hit. I was like, I have an idea. I think it would be a very good product. I'm in school, don't have time to do this. So I told my dad, I'm like, make me do this. Bug me, get up here, call me. Like,
that's what parents are for.
And he's like, okay. And he kept on me and made us do it. And I was like, well, we'll go in 50-50, just make me do this. And that's how it kind of got started. And the whole idea originally with like, it was like bridging the generation gap between like creating a product that we would both want to use as like a millennial and a boomer.
Right. And that resulted in the Bridge wallet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were a college student and your dad was helping you, like kind of, how did you manufacture like prototypes and like kind of get that off the ground?
So the very first prototype, I wish I had it. So like when I thought of the idea that I wanted to make a minimalist wallet, I had all these criteria that I wanted to hit. It was like, I didn't want it to be a multi-piece design. There's a lot of things on the market where it's like, if you take the band off, it kind of falls apart in a bunch of pieces. So I wanted it to feel substantial. I wanted it to be like not too minimal, because like you can't sell someone a rubber band. So
Some people did. Some people did.
That's kind of what was happening at the time. But yeah, once I had that criteria, I remember just staring at my ceiling one night, and I just like was thinking about how to make it expand. That was probably the hardest issue to crack, is how to make it expandable and then contract and still be like a good experience. So you're not set with like a certain number of cards that you can carry.
So you can carry just one and still feel secure.
Right.
Yeah, so you can have one card, you can expand it to 10, you can go back to 1 and not have it like fall apart. Like leather wallets will like stretch out over time, and you're forced to carry that amount of cards. And when I got the idea for the inner plates, the outer plates, they sort of resemble a credit card. So I just got a bunch of old credit cards and gift cards and cut them up, and I super glued like the layers. Almost like it would be like a version of a super early 3D printing with like credit card layers.
Yeah.
So I like cut them up and I made the inner plates, and then my mom has a sewing set up at home. So I got some elastic at Joann's and had her sew the first elastic band,
nice.
Put it around the credit cards, glued the top layer on, and that was like the first kind of proof of concept of like what it would look like. And then my dad, we took that to a metal manufacturing shop down the street from us, where I grew up in Southern California. And that guy made a really, really rough prototype. And then I sent that to a manufacturer.
What was it? What was the original prototype made out of? Was it just pure stainless steel?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't stainless. It was just steel. It was super heavy.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually what was when I first got to try a Ridge wallet. That's what surprised me, that it's exactly the size of a credit card. It's not something like, I don't think when you see it in videos or in ads, it doesn't really do it justice with like how small it actually is, because it is exactly the size of a credit card, and that actually surprised me. I mean, I could see it from the photos, but until you have it in your hand, it is just the size of a credit card.
Yeah, it's much smaller than people expect.
Exactly.
Like, even in my head, sometimes we're designing around it, or people are like, we're ideating around. Like everyone always says, let's put a battery pack in it. I'm like, it's tiny.
Yeah, how are you going to do that?
Yeah. There's not a lot of like open space in it for like any features like that. Yeah. But that was part of the criteria, was not having like a retaining band or edge, because that's most of the solutions, is you need a retaining edge to like house the wallet, so you need to like connect the front and the back plates,
or like have like a backstop so that it doesn't fall through, and then you push it out. Another
exactly.
way.
You need something, and that requires to go around the dimensions of a credit card.
Right.
So that was one of the criteria. I wanted to get that like footprint exactly a credit card.
Cool. So that prototype was like just over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then was it how much different was it from like prototype to the original Kickstarter, and then even to like today's Ridgewallet, like the one I have in my pocket?
So we've gone through a ton of iterations. I mean, the biggest change was like it was all riveted together. So that was like those early wallets were they're kind of like beasts. We still see them. Those things are still ticking. They're riveted. The elastic is mostly covered, so like it doesn't have as much. It'll last for like way longer than you'd expect. It's been like 11 years now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But it has changed a ton over the years. The biggest transition was like around like I think it was like 2016, 2017 when we added a lot more of the modularity features, and that's when we really committed to the idea of modularity. And we don't, as a brand and like the offering we don't lean into that as much. It's more of like a repair angle. But now it's like that was the turning point where instead of the money clip being attached to the outer plate, it became a part of the inner plate, and it actually became like a removable component. So you can change from cast strap to money clip, and we can create other accessories. So that's the biggest change, is really that modularity aspect.
Nice. I'm glad you mentioned that, because like you were saying, it's probably not very obvious to people just like browsing online that they can kind of take this apart, repair it themselves if they want to. And like personally, well, I'm kind of a nerd, but like if I have a collection of Ridge wallets and plates and stuff, I'll like swap things around, change the screws out. But that's some good insider knowledge from the designer herself. Yeah. So how do you think that Ridge as the company has changed along with the wallet designs from, you're working out of your garage and you're asking your parents to help you, and now we're, here?
Yeah, it is pretty wild how much the company changed. We did a stand-up lesson, all hands, recently, and we did that kind of the history of the Ridge, and just looking back on the iterations and the different milestones the company's hit. It is pretty crazy that we're rapidly becoming like a very mature professional organization, and it's really cool to see the growth. We're bringing on a lot more professional industry type people that have seen this play out at other companies, and like how we should have our infrastructure built. It really used to be like, I always joke that it was like we were running a company for the first time in history. We're the first people ever to create a company, and like didn't really know how to make processes, didn't know how a lot of departments should function. And that's been the biggest change in the last couple of years, is really like the professionalization across the company and bringing in people that have actually worked somewhere else. And like, I've never worked anywhere else.
And then from that sort of professionalization, what did you learn as a product designer? Like, how does that impact your design process?
The design process, we have a couple different ways we take ideas, and everyone's always pitching ideas, and we'll take ideas from anyone across the whole company, which I think is really important. And there's like certain things I don't want to lose about like the way we do it, because it is a little different than like a traditional approach. So we take input from a merchandising point of view, which is really like, where is the white space in the market? What products do we need? Like, what demand exists, and how do we capture that demand? And then we also have the flip side, where we want to do what we want to do. If I have a fun idea, or we have like, and I think this is where you guys come in a lot more, where it's like actually much more like enthusiast passion projects we want to do. And it's really important, I think, to have both of those in our lineup, because we got to have the best stuff to sell that's going to work the best in acquisition ads, but then we also got to make really cool stuff for enthusiasts and ourselves.
Right. And that's one thing that I always kind of admired about Ridge, is it's sort of, I joke that it's kind of like the gateway drug into the everyday carry hobby, like, because you reach so many people who have never really thought about a wallet, let alone their entire EDC. But then now that you're making more products that are in the EDC sort of market, once they get the wallet, then they're like, oh, there's a key organizer. And then, oh, there's like bags and watches and that sort of thing. And I think that's super cool to just help people get into the enthusiasm of everyday carry.
Yeah, it's like before they don't know it, but they are participating.
I think everyone has an everyday carry. It's just they haven't thought about it yet. Yeah. So you're making products that kind of appeal to more people, and I think that's great. But then you also mentioned there are things that you want to do for the enthusiasts or out of passion. What product would you design with no restrictions, but like unlimited resources? What is something that you want to like bring to life as a designer?
No restrictions. And
It doesn't have to be even
resources.
like with Ridge.
Yeah.
Like personally.
Yeah, just
if
something
you could
you
make
think-
anything
yeah.
with unlimited resources,
Like this
what
would be
you?
sick if it existed and I made it.
I would love to do, and I always joke, like sometimes we talk about, oh, what would we do after Ridge? And something I would probably go smaller. Like I'd actually be probably similar to something you guys, like your guys' hobbies in the EDC niche.
yeah.
Like I love the idea of just well-designed products as a tenant and not necessarily like any type of product. So, like OXO,
What we
the kitchen
create.
brand,
Yeah,
OXO.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they,
yeah.
I would love to do
We
an
test and we
elevated
learn.
version of that, but for like anything. So it's like anything. It's almost taking like a commoditized good and then like making a very robust and highly engineered version of it. So it's like really nice kitchenware. I'm really into like pour over coffee setups. I would like maybe build something around that and just anything that you use in your day-to-day life that needs to be engineered well and is almost a commodity. That's what I would like to do.
Okay.
I think that's a good segue then. What would you say are your like design influences that like led you to wanting to elevate everyday? Do you have an inspiration for something you see? Like you mentioned OXO. Do you have any other like designers or brand inspirations for how you design
James
things?
Dyson is one of my heroes.
Dyson, nice. Yeah.
I think it's incredible what he did to the vacuum. It's just such like a product that was so stale. Nothing happened forever.
And like, who gets excited over a vacuum?
No one was
right?
excited
Yeah,
about vacuums.
Dysons are like an aspirational thing for
Right.
millennials at least.
Yeah.
Even the hair dryer is like an
Oh, yeah,
aspirational
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and it has such a specific design language too.
Yeah,
So,
you can see a Dyson product, you like from across the room, you know what it does. He took a product category that no one cared about, no innovation was happening. It was like Hoovers. It was like door-to-door Hoover
Yeah,
salesmen to like our grandparents and
Right.
like nothing until Dyson basically. And I like that they have like that design house feel and they have a very distinct design approach, but then they also like had a pretty revolutionary technology that they basically scaled down to fit in like household vacuums, which is that like the idea of the cyclone for a bagless design is
Yeah.
actually innovative
And
versus
like the wow factor of like a bladeless fan. What are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I see when I first saw that, I was like, there's no way that works. But it works really well.
Yeah,
that's like
it
that's how
actually
their
moves
And then,
products are.
and then you pass right in front of it. It was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what just happened there?
So Dyson's a good one. Thule's a big one of mine. I think I really like their approach, and I think we do some similar things at Ridge where I want to create a brand that if you know we make something, you just trust it's good. That's kind of what I think of Thule is like they don't necessarily, the categories they get into and their approach doesn't necessarily come from like a logical category point of view. It's really from like, we're going to approach this category and it's going to be the best one. Like they do baby strollers, they do car racks, they do backpacks. It's just kind of, they pick categories and then they make a really, really good version of it in their design language.
For me, that was Victorinox. And that's taking it all the way back to 2013.
Yeah.
I first met Bernard asking him about Victorinox products because I was based in Hong Kong at the time. And they have giant Victorinox flagship stores. And I didn't know anything about EDC.
Yeah.
So I DM'd this random guy on the internet with an EDC blog. Hey, can you tell me anything you know about Victorinox? Like, what's good here? What should I pick up?
What did I say?
I was asking you about a flashlight. And you said it.
Don't get those.
Don't get those.
Okay, that's
and I'm like, I got them because I had no other choice.
Okay.
Nobody else was selling enthusiast flashlights at that time at
Yeah.
that scale, and Victorinox was selling like a normal AA flashlight. I'm like, I'm picking up a Swiss Army knife. Might as well pick up the flashlight.
sure.
And like just to what you were saying, Daniel. Hey, that luggage looks pretty good. I kind of trust what the Swiss Army knife's quality, and like they're kind of really nice.
Victorinox
also,
is a great one. I forgot they also do luggage. They've been doing luggage for a long time.
head to
lot
head
of
with
stuff.
Samsonite.
Yeah. That's interesting. Was that like before your EDC
Oh
days?
yeah,
Like
this was like I knew nothing.
Okay.
I was like looking up to Bernard and
So
DMing him
Victorinox was
nonstop.
your gateway drug, would
Yes,
you say? into
Victorinox,
EDC?
yeah. Because like the pocket knife, my grandfather had like a basic pocket knife when he was in the Scouts. So and then just that transition into being able to afford like a nicer, modern Victorinox Swiss Army knife at that point, and then just started from there. And then I started learning about knives and flashlights and better stuff, and through everyday carry, of course, yeah.
That's a great one. We probably don't talk about Victorinox as much as we should at Ridge, and they're organically, like if we don't think about it, we're going in a similar direction.
Yeah.
Especially with the luggage, I was like, wow, I totally forgot they do luggage.
The brand that kind of got me into EDC, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, is Supreme. Because they came out with a flashlight a long time ago. It was a Maglite Solitaire AAA incandescent bulb, 1 lumen. I may have told this story on the podcast, I don't know, but I remember I got it and it was so weak. I was like, there has to be something better than this flashlight. So that's when I started doing research and I found like flashlight forums, and these people also carried pocket knives, and there's this whole thing called Everyday Carry. And I was like, yo, this is sick, but like no one's gonna read all this nerdy stuff. I'm just gonna take the best of it, curate it, put it on a blog, and then call it Everyday Carry, because that's what I knew it was called. And for my own like organization, I would tag things Everyday Carry, and apparently that's what SEO is, and I didn't know that. So that's kind of how I built the business. Kind of didn't know what I was doing either.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Did you? When did you get the URL?
I think I got it with a dash in between Everyday and Carry in like 2010.
Oh, really? You got it with a dash?
I think so. And, but then like by 2013, we had bought the domain and turned it into a business without the dash. So that's super old school lore. For
The Sans Dash era.
Yeah. But enough about that. I want to bring it back. We were talking about like your kind of favorite design language from other brands. How would you describe the design DNA of Ridge today? Because you're making so many more new products.
Yeah, that's something we're on our work retreat right now, and that's a question that's come up, or something we've been talking about, is like Ridge's design language and how it iterates over time. And as we add new categories, it's like to make a design language that can encompass it all, we've had to like really pick and choose what tenets we keep or what we like string across from the wallet to the luggage line. And at the core of it, I really think it's our like this idea of having few silhouettes that are extremely thoughtful. Like we have one wallet.
Yeah.
We're coming out with more this year, don't tell anyone. But we have one wallet for 10 years. A ton of different colors and materials. And we're making those selections. It really doesn't have to do with the underlying functionality of it. It's like that functionality that we wanted in that category comes from that like one silhouette. I've carried that over across to the other product lines in the form of basically matching colors and materials. So when we're designing our luggage, we kind of had to decide like, all right, the wallet, it kind of has like, it's not what you expect. It's this like crazy break from the regular wallet. Like any minimalist like metal wallet in general is like not what you expect when you think of a wallet. So for a long time, we always thought it's like, oh, whatever category we get into, if we're going to make sunglasses, it's got to be some crazy modular sunglasses that like
the
no
size
one's
of a
ever
credit
seen.
card.
It folds
fits
up
into your wallet. Yeah, it's all scratched. Yeah.
So it's like, do we have to take every tenet from the wallet and approach it to other categories? And I think that was a mistake for a long time. That application should be used sometimes, but not for the sake of it.
Yeah.
I think whatever we do, I just make sure that are we solving a problem that actually exists? I think so many people set out in product design and thinking about a company they want to create, and they are focusing on a problem that no one's really asking for a solution to. So that's a huge one for me. And for the wallet, I think it worked out because it was like, oh yeah, we do want a new solution to the wallet, and we want to radically change this. But then when we approach something like a carry-on, carry-ons are pretty good. I think my preferred form factor is a four-wheeled spinner. And we looked at 2 wheels. We could have like done some crazy thing where it goes sideways or it has a different seam opening, and we make some giant wheels and like try to solve some issue that I don't think is actually there. So then we settled on like, no, actually our approach is going to be that familiar form factor. And then our design language we pull over, which I think was the original question, has a lot to do with like durability and like ruggedness and matching and colors and materials, and that's the angle we're really going with there.
I really like unified design languages. Like if you think about it, if like Apple as an example, you see the shadow of an iPhone, you see the shadow of a MacBook, you see the shadow of AirPods. You still know that it's the Apple ones. Like even with headphones, like in a sea of like a little ocean of headphones, you see the AirPods Max, and those are AirPods Max. So they're, even if they have such a small product line, just like the unifying design language just brings it all together and just like unifies the experience, like the ownership experience, and it's just like it's all matched, and it's all like very aspirational, it's all very unified, and feels good to like the brand synergy, basically.
Yeah, and I appreciate that about Ridge because you're doing that for the entire everyday carry. Like your whole setup can be a Ridge and then like the same colors and materials, and that's really cool because that wasn't really a thing and it still kind of isn't. There aren't many brands that do like a full everyday carry kit that matches. It's like you do have to like pick and choose, and maybe they're different brands and the designs aren't exactly the same. The colors don't match exactly, but then you're hoping that it's still gonna bang on Instagram and Reddit when you post it.
Yeah, that kind of blows my mind
Right?
that like that path seems so like intuitive and like that's the path. It's the
Yeah.
matching path because all the lay flats, everyone wants like a full
Exactly.
brass or a
Yeah.
full orange
Exactly.
EDC, and then they're mixed and matching from different brands, different colors, and there's no standard.
Yeah.
So I think we're just gonna build all of it.
So you mentioned like, these ideas of like matching colors and materials. I know materials are a big emphasis at Ridge. And for me, it kind of makes sense. I'm, like a nerd, so I understand the difference between materials. But I imagine that like not all potential customers do, and maybe not everybody who just sees a Ridge wallet. I'm curious, are there other things that you wish more people knew about your designs that might not be so obvious? And like, let us in on that from the design perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the biggest one is the inner plates on the wallet are metal. People think they're plastic sometimes, and I'm like, drives me nuts.
How does it block ARFID then if it's not? Okay.
A lot of people think they're plastic,
Yeah.
maybe because it's an anodized aluminum that's polished, so it doesn't feel like, usually aluminum's like kind of like a sandblasted texture.
Right.
Or it's light.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really light.
Yeah.
It's like polished. So a lot of people think those are plastic. I think when we approach the products, we really want you to be able to use it without knowing anything about the product. That's sort of
That's
good.
hard though.
That's good.
yeah. And I'm a big believer, and I think we want to take like a lot of these products and apply it to like mainstream. So if it's too complicated, if it comes with an instruction manual, I always joke when we're designing backpacks, it's like, you can't need an instruction manual with this. Someone has to be able to pick it up. My dad has to be able to pick it up and use it like a backpack to truly reach mass appeal. I think that's something that Toomey does very well. I think they have a way too wide of an assortment. They don't explain the differences between the bags, but you can just pick up a Toomey bag and use it. They don't go overboard with the modularity. That's an example of a tenet that I wouldn't bring over from EDC into travel, is like too much modularity.
Right.
Because then it becomes vague and people don't know how to use it.
And if you think about it, a lot of like luxury bags also are very, very simple, and they focus on the usability of it. Like it's a basic duffel bag with a one zipper, but then highest quality possible materials, highest possible craftsmanship, and the branding, of course. But then the functionality of it is very simple, so that anybody can just like.
The higher the price of the bag, the less features you get.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's good.
I think,
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's like kind of important to make that distinction, because I remember back, 10 years ago or whatever on Kickstarter, it's like if you had like a bajillion crazy features, then that's where your value and your innovation comes from. But then like those brands that leaned in too hard to that, I don't think they're around anymore. And so many people appreciate just like well-made but simple stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but like I'm kind of leaning towards that as well. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think relying too much on the features, obviously like you have to have the features, but like that being the entire thing turns a product into kind of a commodity, and you can't charge a premium, you can't have good margins on that, then you can't run acquisition, and like you basically don't have a business that could scale. So you really do need to have some amount of that emotional attachment beyond just the features. And I think that's really important.
And like too many features, like if one of them breaks, it ruins the experience of all of the other features. Like we have these really fancy zippers, so many pockets, and then one pocket kind of has a hole in it. It kind of ruins everything else.
Yeah, you can't use the features.
Yeah.
I think it also, too many features detracts from the main features. So it's like, I like to rally around like very core features that we integrate and have it like work very well, be simple, and have it across the product line. Like for our travel line, it's like the bags are weatherproof, is what we call our like water resistance rating, and it revolves around like a waterproof shell and YKK AquaGuard zippers, and it's like you can go out in the rain with it and it'll stay dry. And it's like focusing on weatherproof, focusing on like lifetime warranty, focusing on like AirTag trackability. I like keeping it very like succinct and like really driving those features home.
Yeah, not too complicated.
Something you can elevate or pitch, really. Yeah.
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 speaking of complications, I just want to say like one of my, I think, favorite recent Ridge products that kind of encapsulates this ethos is the Field Watch, right? There are a lot of good features in that, but it's not like in your face, and it's almost like if you know, you know, and you can just appreciate those. So I really like.
I really like the Field Watch also.
Yes, I'm glad you guys like the Field Watch because that was like. We made the Land and Sea Watch, which was like a quartz GMT, kind of had like some interchangeable bezels, and we took the wallet approach. That was like when we're like, what if we made a watch like the wallet?
Yeah.
And I personally don't like that as much in a watch. And then the Field Watch was much more like, all right, I'm going to make a Field Watch that I want and like, and that's
huge.
I like that it aligns with what you guys
Yeah,
like.
and the value proposition for the watch is pretty crazy actually if you compare it to the other stuff. Like really good value for a titanium automatic and like interchangeable bands, like just those 3 features alone, and it looks nice, of course.
Yeah, and I think that's important because like even if you don't know what a Miyota 9 series movement is or like what grade 2 titanium is, sapphire crystal, you don't know any of that. It's just like, oh, this is like a nice, light, durable watch and it looks good and I can wear it. Like I think that's also important that it needs to stand on its own, like you're saying, without knowing like all the features or how to do everything that's like too complex.
Yeah, like
but
the user still benefits just by inherently using the product. The user benefits from the features even if they don't know it, which would be the thinner case from the Miyota 9 series, which I had to kind of fight to get that in there because it's like way more expensive than the comparable Psycho movements.
Yeah, I was with you on that. Yeah.
And it just so happens that it perfectly matches your wallet at the end.
And then you can get a Basecamp orange watch.
Right.
Exactly.
Match your EDC.
So you had to fight for that. What are other, maybe like what is the hardest part of your job then?
The hardest part of my job, I think, is balancing the business needs for the products versus like the personal and aspirational and like what we like as enthusiasts versus what will work and scale and make a profitable business. So I think a lot of the secret to our success has been balancing those 2 pillars, and they're both equally important. You can't have one without the other. And who's to say how much salt and pepper you put in something?
Right.
I think that's one of the most difficult challenges of picking products and designing them.
Dude, I would agree. I think Mikey and I can agree and like sort of in the same boat. Just like making content, it's like there's stuff that we want to make, and then there's stuff that the algorithm wants you to make.
Yeah, we could spend 2 hours on a podcast talking about tints on an LED on a flashlight, but who would listen to that?
Yeah, not everyone. Yeah, so we kind of have to pick and choose, and like it's an art and a science, and you need both, right? So that makes a lot of sense.
And then someone's got to decide how much of the art and how much of the science we end up with.
And at the end of the day, you're still trying to be a business. You're still trying to be, or like in our case, we're still trying to make accessible content.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make a valuable product that people would be willing to purchase and sustain the company. So there's nonstop balance there.
Yeah, and that's why I love talking to you guys, and like the EDC team in general is such a good barometer for our product team because it's like you guys are so passionate about the products, you know the space so well, and there's obviously something there. I think there's some emotional like core tendencies that everyone has. Obviously, it's like a collector mentality. There's something there, and I like trying to figure out what that is and what makes you guys gravitate towards that world and what you like about it, and then how do we make it so it's a mainstream product? How do we like take some of that magic and like apply it to a way broader audience?
And I also like that Bernard and I specifically are very diametric in a lot of things. Like
our tastes are pretty opposite.
We're literally light mode, dark mode. Honestly, like look at us.
I'm always wearing white.
Yeah, and it's nice. Like even to us when we're working, it brings so much perspective because we're always usually on the opposite ends of things, and we butt heads sometimes, but it's always a good discussion because we end up at the end of it we end up in the middle perfectly. And that's been like our working relationship for the past 10 years as well, because we are also in like past our anniversary already for EDC working together. So I think that's been very, very crucial for us that we're not exactly the same. We don't really like the same stuff. And I think that's great, like working with somebody like that where you can bounce ideas off of it. It's not always the same thing and have that variety. And hopefully that's what we bring to Ridge as well, where you guys know the market, you know how to run a business. We can tell you I mean, in a way, we can tell you if something sucks, maybe, and then tell you. But if we do it this way, maybe it makes more sense if we can give you more ideas of how the meta of the market of EDC is for specific products.
Yeah, no, totally. I think the designers and our project managers are reaching out to you guys a lot more and talking to the broader team.
I love
about
talking with them. Yeah.
We're getting into knives more seriously.
Yeah,
and it's like, all right, we got the best knife
Watch
guys
out.
around.
Yeah.
Watch out for that.
Yeah. It's really cool, and it's fun to share our perspective more from the enthusiast crowd. But I hear there's news that we're kind of branching out into other enthusiast crowds, and that has to do with MKBHD. Do you want to tell us about that deal and the tech world?
Yeah, I can't believe it's actually live. So excited to be working with him. So we're going to be essentially creating products with MKBHD under the Ridge brand, and we're going to be having different lines of, and it's going to kind of like depend on his involvement in the design. He's been awesome to work with. I wasn't sure like how they were going to like working with us and like how it was going to work in like the whole product development flow. And I was hoping that he would like our products. So as we gave him products to test, he would basically like our commuter backpack. We're designing a backpack with him, and it's like we started off with our commuter backpack and had him use it.
Scoop.
And then have him give us feedback, and his broader team will give us feedback, and then we'll work on addressing what he does or doesn't like about it, and either leaning into that or changing some features, and then creating a bag around his personal preferences, which I think is really cool.
Oh, okay.
And that's really interesting too, because he's coming from a different space from us completely, but he still also like, he knows quality stuff from the tech world. We would know stuff from the EDC world, and it's nice that he would give his own feedback as well, and how you guys bounce off of the ideas that he brings to the table as well.
Yeah, he's very much in a different space. He's like firmly in that tech world, and we want to appeal to more of a tech audience as well, and make sure we're creating products for everyone. And the relationship is so great because he focuses mostly on tech reviews, so he doesn't do EDC reviews quite like you guys. He's not as professional in that realm. So it's kind of cool that it's not necessarily like his area that he reviews. It's almost like it truly is his personal opinion on EDC and what he personally wants to use. And he's so well respected in the community, and he has such a good eye for design and materials in general, that his personal style, I think, is just going to create awesome products.
Exactly what he did with his shoes.
Yeah. Oh, true. He
did the shoes with Adams were really cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing the same thing with a bunch of EDC and travel products.
We've seen him. You should be excited about him.
I'm just so excited to have someone like Marquez say like everyday carry and EDC gear, right? It's just like, it's not just me yapping and trying to tell people like, no, it's cool, it'll be a thing, I promise, guys will wear fanny packs 10 years from now. And I mean, they do now, but like, it's so surreal for me to see like photographers and tech people, and just not people in the core like tactical EDC space using the term EDC and everyday carry as a descriptor just in general. And it's just really exciting to see where it's going to grow.
Fantastic point. I hadn't thought about it from that lens of like, that is a huge moment for you guys, like on top of the huge moment for Ridge of like Marquez Brownlee talking about everyday carry.
One of the first times I heard about Marquez, I heard about him in another tech podcast, because they brought him on because he's like the up and coming creator at the time. He was doing 4K when everybody else was still 720p. And he was like, you child spent how many thousands of dollars on these cameras that even film studios don't have, and you're recording in 4K, and they couldn't believe it. But at that time, this was also around 10 years ago. I was watching him on this podcast about 2012, 2014, and then years later, when I was already working with Bernard, he does a video, my everyday carry, and I'm like, he said the thing. He said the thing. I'm working in the thing. He said the thing, and like Bernard was saying, he's in the tech space, so there wasn't really much crossover then. Like there would be bags on their side of things. There's very popular like Swiss Gear backpacks, or like Tumi or Targus. Those are the kind of like the tech brands. And now it's just like starting to come together. 2024 is the year. It's like EDC is going to be part of like everything now.
It's happening.
And like just to add to that, so YETI recently acquired Mystery Ranch, and in their press release, YETI explicitly says they want to get into everyday carry gear through that acquisition. And I'm just like, okay, that is a big brand that is kind of not core EDC, but adjacent to it. And they're acknowledging and validating that term as a market, descriptor. And I'm just like, that is crazy to me.
That is crazy. I'm very interested to see what happens with the Mystery Ranch acquisition. Are they is that team gonna be building Yeti's bags moving forward? Or are they gonna keep it a separate brand? Or
that's true.
Rolling it together.
Even the Mystery Ranch fans are like, ooh, we're kind of nervous, but Yeti knows what they're doing. They're a gigantic company, so maybe this could be the boost that like Mystery Ranch needed to also propel their business. Yeah.
But Yeti getting into the everyday carry space is very interesting. We look up to Yeti.
Yeah.
Ton of respect for them. They've done probably one of the most meteoric rises in the last 10 years from a D2C space. And we always talk about what is some existential issue, or what would a wallet look like if Yeti made it?
That's a good question. Just imagining a Yeti wallet.
Yeah.
And thinking of that's where you can start to see the actual core design tenets differ so much, because they can't make something lightweight because that's not Yeti. They have to make something heavy and big and substantial. But it'll be interesting if that starts to evolve a little bit, if Mystery Ranch is the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
And interestingly, Yeti we're starting to dip their toes into the EDC space. I knew they were paying attention because they kept releasing that King Crab line that's orange, and orange is kind of like the flavor of EDC, especially the bag community. They love orange interiors, bright orange products. So Basecamp Orange was actually a really nice turning point also for the Ridge side, because that's the EDC color along with camo and other stuff.
Yeah.
But orange is, for some reason, that became the color. Yeah. So I knew Yeti was up to something because they're really pushing those king crab colors. So yeah, that's interesting that eventually when they pick up Mystery Ranch, I think that would be a good partnership personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious which direction they go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just instead of being curious, you want to just guess. What do you think when we're sitting here 10 years from now at another work retreat, we're looking back, how has EDC changed in 2034? No, you're still working.
Yeah.
I imagine it'll be much more mainstream. I think I'm hoping we're the leader in the space and continue to be the leader in the space. And I think through classic design, matching colors, matching materials, I think that's the direction it's going to go. Because we're already kind of seeing that with Yeti. They release colorways across the whole product line. I'm curious if there ends up being more consolidation in the space, because for a long time it was always there isn't really a strategic acquisition target for us, for Ridge as a company, because it's who's big wallet? It's we're slowly becoming big wallet.
To acquire you guys.
If someone were to acquire Ridge, it's who's you look up, it's who's the bigger wallet company? It's it's not there. But that's not the case in the travel space or the accessories, the general accessory space. And now with Yeti, the drinkware space, and they're looking to acquire brands, talking about everyday carry. I could see a consolidation in the space for sure, and more of almost more of I feel there's no archetype for everyday carry. It's still very, very niche. And you look at I look to the tech brands, and whatever Amazon comes out with, Apple, Google, they all do the same thing. They all have a little smart home speaker. They all have a voice assistant. So they all kind of just do the same thing. And it becomes almost a rule in the industry. It almost turns into a commodity product, or everyone has their version of that product, and that hasn't happened in the EDC space. It's sort of a carry-on is that now. It's that silhouette of a carry-on is what you expect to see, and I would expect that to continue across the board, and maybe see some sort of Nike Converse relationship where you're shopping on Nike and there's the Converse sub-brand within there. That would be my guess for Yeti, Mystery Ranch, Ridge.
Okay. Yeah. Something that strikes me from what you just said, when I think about the future of everyday carry, just as an industry, as a hobby in general, maybe 10 years from now, I think the term as we know it will soften so much that I don't even know what it's going to mean, but so many more things will be considered everyday carry. And there's not going to be as many people fighting in the comments that's not everyday carry. It has a battery in it or something. I'm yeah, I don't know. But I think, because of technology, things can get miniaturized and more pocketable. There's going to be that. And people will just think about using their products every day a little bit more intentionally. And there might even be this sort of kind of status symbol associated with it. Because we're already seeing that with drinkware, right? So I think
Starbucks.
Yeah. So this is stuff that is supposed to go in your pockets, but with sharing on social media, that kind of makes those more interesting and visible in that sense, and people wanting to share that as a personal expression. I really think, and maybe I'm influencing this in some way, but I really think EDC will expand beyond just pure functionality of things that can only fit in your pockets and only be used every day. I feel that it's such a narrow scope of what everyday carry is and can be. And in 10 years, I hope that when somebody asks me like, oh, what do you do? And I say, oh, I work on EDC stuff. They're not going to say, oh, like the rave. They're going to say, oh, I know everyday carry. I got one right now. Then they give me a pocket dump. That would be sick. That's what I hope for in 10 years. Yeah.
I would love that future as well. I think that's an interesting point about like not thinking it has to be such a small subset of goods for a certain criteria, certain size, and really just broadening what that means, because it could be anything. If you consider a backpack everyday carry, everything that's in the backpack is your everyday carry.
Yeah, and we just did an episode on like toys, and then you guys are making rings and carry-ons, and like those are adjacent enough, and like right. So I think it'll expand. Do you have any predictions, hot takes, Mikey?
I like you just mentioned earlier, like it's happening now. I'm having casual conversations with people and like, oh, I'm carrying a knife, and then we start showing each other what we're carrying, or I carry a multi-tool and stuff, and like, oh, you're carrying a Leatherman too? I was just talking with one of our coworkers, Chad. He was wearing a Leatherman tread, so we started a whole conversation because he was wearing something that was in more of our space. Like Leatherman is like a more legacy brand. Yeah, so it's nice talking bags with people. I have conversations with my wife about bags. I can tell her like she gets more interested about durability and like functionality and features and stuff. And even Ridge is now like moving more into like the women's stuff also. I really like that there's more diversity now there also. I would love for more women to be into EDC stuff. I would love to talk knives with like not just guys all the time and talk about functionality and stuff and have more color options. Like I come also from like a sneaker background, and sometimes like the sneakers for the women are even better than the ones for the men. So there's all that stuff there. So I really am excited that it's more homogenized, it's more open, it's more encompassing, it's more what do you call this? Inclusive. There you go. That's the word.
The rise of women's EDC is a great prediction, because I think like women already have a huge EDC community. They just don't view it like that. It's like it's your like accessories, it's
and
bags,
they're also being carry. And back to the bottles, that they're being targeted specifically by the bottles for Starbucks and YETI with all of the colors and color matching across all of their drinkware, right? You got to have the matching orange one with orange one with orange one.
So they're already doing it, but there's no term. There's no like
exactly.
It's considered such a like male-centric everyday carry.
And it's funny because I think about this that I think that there might be more what's in my bag videos done by women than by men.
Exactly.
In the everyday carry space. Right?
The whole thing for the whole gnawing thing and pulling everything out of your bag is from the women's side, right? It's the whole what's in my bag concept, right? Yeah.
Not to like profit off of the work of women.
Exactly.
I'm not saying I did that.
No,
it's just coincidence.
Exactly. Okay. I'm just saying that it's directly inspired by the what's in my bag type content also.
And what's in my bag is EDC.
Exactly.
But they're probably not going to just use that brand. Maybe it doesn't sound cute. How do we make EDC sound
everyday
to
cute?
Women?
There you go.
I don't know.
That's it. Everyday cute.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of women and inclusive designs, Ridge is working on some of those. We've seen some of those already. Do you want to speak to those, and maybe just what else are you cooking up for Ridge until our next 10-year anniversary podcast episode?
Yeah, I haven't quite gotten to the next 10 years, but we have a pretty robust roadmap for the next couple of years, and a big part of that is making products that appeal more to women. And I don't think I should be telling women what they should carry and like how to design stuff. So part of the plan is bringing more women designers on. We have a few women designers on staff. We have some contractors that do some really cool illustrations for us for women's prints, and I think leaning more into that and like having women design more stuff for us, as well as taking we have some like there's internal debate on like we don't explicitly want to have like women's on the site, but we want to have stuff that's like less masculine. Our stuff does skew pretty masculine, and it's like for a women's wallet like the Ridgewallet, it's like it's a pretty unisex core design, but then the colors and the materials we pick tend to be pretty masculine. So it's like if we just make those in more female friendly colors and patterns and prints, like does that core design it wasn't designed to be just for men. It really does work for
Yeah,
women as well. My mother-in-law loves putting her Ridgewallet, and she loves it because she can just pop it in her bag.
Yeah.
So like for men, it's like, oh, I think of from such a male point of view of like, oh, I got to put it in my pocket. But
not a lot of women's pants.
Women usually keep their wallet in their purse or their bag or whatever they're traveling with.
Yeah.
And that's not even a matter of design. That's a matter of like branding and content and positioning and just being like, oh shoot, we've been telling everyone to put it in their front pocket forever. Maybe we should also tell people they can put it in their bag, or and like making it a part of that ecosystem. So a big part of the strategy is just not necessarily changing the function of designs and just making more appealing colors and patterns that women like. Working with more female designers. We have a really cool design series dropping later this year from a female artist that I'm really excited for.
Nice.
Again, watch out.
Yeah.
So now that we're talking about the future and we've talked about the past, during your whole personal journey with Ridge and from the very beginning, what has been like a low light and what has been a highlight of the past 10 years for you?
Low light and highlight of the past 10 years.
I know what my highlight is just being here, finally being a part. Like Bernard and I have been grinding on Everyday Carry for 10 years now also. And it's nice to be part of a company where we can lend our expertise also, everything we've learned, and working together and being part of a company that's like is doing something exciting in the space. I mean, honestly, personally, and being more inclusive, like we just talked about, having more women stuff and branching more into making more accessible everyday carry. That's been the highlight for me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool because you guys have grown a ton as well, and now that we're like folding into the bigger like operations, it's like the whole organization is becoming more professional, which is very. I didn't realize how refreshing that could be.
It's nice to have coworkers.
It's nice. Yeah, not everyone. I think like I spent so many years, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, just wearing so many hats, doing so many roles. We used to joke, we used to not have titles, it's just everyone's a CX rep. It's like we're all just customer service. Everyone does product design, everyone does customer service, everyone does marketing, everyone does like everything. And like it's been like our growth has been like defining what those roles are, and it's been more challenging than I expected. And then I didn't realize how much like breadth of stuff I'd been doing for all these years until then. It's like now, I'm very much just focused on product.
Yeah, you get to focus.
So I think to answer your question, Mikey, low light. 8 years ago, me and Austin, we had a batch of wallets. That was one of our co-founders, one of my best friends growing up. It was me and him shipping out of my parents' house still, and we had a batch of wallets that all the screws were falling out. And we didn't have any money to buy new wallets, so those wallets had to work. Like we had to sell them. We had orders rolling in, and faster than we could make them, faster than we could fulfill them, and we had no money to order more wallets, and all the screws started falling out. So we were literally like in my parents' house, like putting Loctite on these tiny screws, like screwing them in with screwdrivers that weren't big enough, like bloody hands in the back, like trying to tighten these wallets. And it was like, if these fall apart, like the business is done. Like, this is not going to work. So that was probably the closest Ridge has ever been to going under. And a highlight is just kind of what I talked about is like now with the professional organization, I reflected on like it's been an amazing journey, awesome 10 years, but I didn't realize how much stuff I was doing from like administration and like just from a like broader business point of view and how many hats we were wearing. And now I can really like build a team that's scalable, and I can focus on what I enjoy doing, which is thinking about product design and approaching like what we're gonna build and launch. And that's been the biggest change for me.
It's kind of similar to Bernard's and my trajectory. Like we spent a couple of years, Bernard having to trust me to help run the site, and now me having to trust other people to help me run the site also. That's like eerily similar to, he always has been telling me, stop doing everything yourself, learn to train
It's harder to stop doing it.
Learn to train other people, trust other people to learn along with you.
And be better than you.
And be better than you, exactly.
Yeah, because it's very, like, I could not have imagined me and Mikey in the same room stopping everything to record the video together, right? But the fact that we can do this means a lot already. So
that is super cool. I feel the same way. It's like, stuff's happening, stuff's progressing.
And it's kind of taken care of.
People are like they know what they should be doing, and that's one of the. I think that's interesting. You brought that up, Mikey. That's one of the toughest like management style I've had to realize where you can't it's easier to just do it than to like teach
Oh, yeah.
someone to do it.
Yes.
So it's like you
That
have
is a trap,
to
though.
resist that impulse.
Yes.
You got to resist that impulse because you got so much stuff to do. Like,
Yes.
no, all right, we're going to hire this role. We're going to define what these roles are. We're going to teach someone to do this.
And I come from a very lead by example type of management also. It's like, I'm going to do this, but I need to be able to do this 10 times faster, rather than thinking of it like, I need to be able to teach someone to do this so that they can find ways to make it like not only do it as good as you, but also think of ways to improve. And you're not only improving yourself as an organization, you're also improving another person's skill set.
Yeah.
And like that just brings everybody up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when one person improves, they can teach somebody else to improve also. And yeah, it just brings everybody up. Yeah.
Yeah. And it only took us 11 years of
I know,
hard work
right?
to figure that out.
I know,
Right?
it's like, we're talking like we've been just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
out for a little time. It's been 11 years.
I think I mentioned this on one of our company calls. It's like it kind of surprises me how both long and how short that timeline is from a business perspective, because stuff started really happening on the Ridge timeline starting 2016, right? And that's when you started hiring more people and making acquisitions, and we came on in 2022. And that timeline was so short. That's just like 7 years.
Yeah, the ramp up has been
Yeah.
insane the last couple of years. And really that like 2016, 2017, when we like changed the wallet to be a more modular aspect, we kind of finalized the design. And then that's when we were able to actually scale production. Because for so long, it's like we just sold as many wallets as we could make, and then we'd stop running our Facebook ads. It was just like,
Right.
it was like the environment back then on Facebook was basically like you could sell as much stuff as you wanted. If we had like, you had a good product, you had good ads. And so it took us a long time to like get the product we wanted, because we didn't want to scale with the product we didn't want. So we finally perfected the product, scaled the production, and then it just kind of has been like a just trajectory from there of like increasing the team, increasing the products, and it's really been like an exponential ramp.
Yeah. But yeah, it's super impressive. And I think we are celebrating all this growth and how far we've come with an anniversary sale coming up.
Yes, I think
right?
anniversary sale comes up in 7 days, so it'll be our 11th anniversary.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah.
XI.
Yeah. So EDC also started, everydaycarry.com was also started in 2013, a little bit later in the year, I think December. And then my very first blog post was actually 2009, December 2009. So this is going to be 15 years of me blogging about
Dang.
stuff.
Do you
That's a lot.
officiate your anniversary?
Dude, I
That's
don't
something we
know.
did a couple years ago. We're like, all right, what's anniversary date? Let's officiate this, run an
okay.
event.
I like barely even celebrate my birthday, so I don't know if I'm going to do anything like that. But yeah, so that would be really cool for people to kind of see the story and then maybe get some stuff on sale, try out the Ridge coming up soon.
Yeah,
And-
we always have some anniversary sales going on. Got a big event this year. I think you should just jump on the Ridge anniversary and just make that EDC
Okay, yeah, right.
So is there any other things you can tease us about 2024, 2025? Any exclusives you want to give us the scoop
Well, let's
about?
not get in trouble. So you
yeah,
can
yeah.
just like
Anything like you can
allude
just barely
to,
tease about.
Yeah.
2024, 2025. Yeah, we have a lot of our roadmap figured out. Actually, I'll show you one thing we got launching in a couple weeks. I am extremely excited. This is our commuter backpack, and
Ooh.
our logo plate here, it screws on with the same screws from the wallet. That's like our design thread we brought over, where it's like instead of having a logo or a embroidered patch or something, we've made this metal plate that we can screw logo plates onto
Nice.
that are the same
Yeah.
materials as the wallet. So we're going to be selling these logo plates where you can get monogrammed with a font that matches our Ridge logo. So
Okay.
this is my initials,
Nice.
DK, on there. You're
Drift
not gonna
King.
See that.
Yeah, I thought that was like Donkey Kong's
Donkey
backpack. No.
Yeah, exactly. This could be Donkey Kong's backpack.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for this, and
Yeah.
it'll work across the travel line. So
Cool.
that's one thing we got coming up. And then just we're really going to be doubling down on EDC and travel. Those are going to be our pillars that we're really going to see us build a lot of products into over the next 2 years.
Nice.
Excellent.
Well, we love that here. So
Yeah.
I got one question for you guys.
that is not allowed on the podcast. But no, I'll make an exception.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
If you guys were running the product team for Ridge, what would you focus on that maybe we're not focusing on, or what would you build?
I'll let you
Whoa.
go first.
No, I like your answer from this morning. We had a meeting
Okay.
this morning.
So I would love. I know that I said that Ridge is like great at kind of the gateway kind of entry into the everyday carry hobby, right? But like that's cool for people to like get into it, and I love that. And that's the whole point of me starting this business. I want more people to share the passion. But what happens once you're bitten by the bug, right? There's kind of like a rabbit hole to go down. I want us to be at the end of the rabbit hole too, not just the beginning.
Yeah.
So I want to make like, or I want to see Ridge make really premium enthusiast level stuff. It doesn't even necessarily have to be premium, but the design and functionality and ethos, if it were in that enthusiast realm, and it could be offered both inaccessible, with accessible prices and materials, but also like the high-end cool stuff that only nerds would know and appreciate, who maybe, you know, follow us and then kind of learn from us what those things are. But, you know, I had an idea for like, so let's just start with the Ridge wallet, right? Say it's, or just a wallet, but in the style of Ridge. Plates, you know, inner plates, outer plates, that kind of thing. I'm thinking like grade 5 titanium, and it's got mixed finishing because I'm into watches. So there's like a brushed surface, there's like a blasted surface, highly polished inner plates or something like that, and then maybe not the current semicircular Ridge notch, but some other shape that kind of differentiates this one. But it's a lot of the same design DNA, but it's like you're leaning really into the premium materials and finishing techniques. I think that would be really cool because the wallet, like you can get the functionality. Everybody knows that you can get the functionality, but I'm trying to kind of normalize this idea of like, you can enjoy EDC beyond its functionality.
Yes.
It can look cool. It can have an emotional
like
connection. Exactly. There's some expression there. There's some psychological needs, I think, that people latch onto EDC for that they don't realize because they need to give themselves permission to carry something if it serves a function. But I think in the future of EDC, that barrier will be broken, and it will let a lot more people enjoy EDC and to a greater degree. And that's what I would love to see. So if it happens to be a very premium enthusiast type of product to serve that group, even if it's small, like I would love to see that.
I'm going to bounce a little bit off of that, and I have two answers to that. One is more like a philosophical thing, and one is like an actual practical thing. The philosophical thing is kind of like what we're doing for EDC and something Bernard mentioned. I want to keep it accessible and available, meaning even if you do like super premium stuff, have everybody get the chance to be able to purchase it if they're able to. I'm really sick of the drop culture, honestly. This is so prevalent in EDC, it's in sneakers, it's even in toys. Like somebody makes something limited edition, you have 10 seconds to buy it when it goes live on the website, and it's gone forever. And then you pay 3 times on the secondary market. I hate that so much.
I hate that, bro.
I really like it when people in EDC find little niche things that they just came across upon, and it's available, and it's not just notify me when available on the website or unavailable or out of manufacturing already on the website. I love it when people get access to a thing and they're able to access the thing when they're ready anytime at all. So the accessibility is something I would be like to focus on. And on a personal level, I would love to do more collabs. So the MKBHD stuff is super exciting. Earlier this morning, Bernard said that we should venture to K-pop stuff. And
okay, you're just gonna...
I'm just gonna steal your answer.
Okay.
But I would love more collabs with like sports, games.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm dreaming of like a Pokemon stuff also.
Pokemon's high on our list.
Yeah. And we're already doing stuff with like the NFL, more sports, more like esports, games, brands, personalities, and have that kind of like inform the decision making or like the designs, but still keep the core design threads like you've mentioned earlier. Still the Ridgewallet, but have somebody else do custom art on it, or like variations in like colors of the plates or the bands or everything, and have that level of customizability, but still have this core DNA. So like same AirPods, but like all matte black everything for Marquez or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, availability and more partnerships and stuff like that. Yeah, for me.
Yeah, those are great, and I think we have all of that in the works.
Cool.
Excellent.
Dude, and it's funny that you mentioned collabs, and I'm thinking about it now, and it's like, I got into EDC because of a collab.
Nice. Supreme
Maglite.
Maglite.
Yeah, so that just about wraps it up for today's episode. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and if you did, please consider subscribing. If you're listening through a podcast service and you really enjoy what we do here, please consider leaving a review and a positive rating, as it would really help the podcast. You can follow us on social media for more content daily on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all of that will be linked below. And if you want to be a part of our EDC community, feel free to hop into our Facebook group or Discord server for more real-time discussion with other EDCers. Lastly, if you have any feedback for us or questions you want answered on the show, you can shoot us an email at podcast@everydaycarry.com. And thank you so much for listening to Carried Away. I'm Bernard.
And Mikey, live from Las Vegas.
With Daniel.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
on.
And until the next one, peace.